This is the Coach Dan Day Show, presented by State Farm agent Alex Hetrick in Murraysville. Here's Dan Flickinger and the third-year head coach of the Griffins, Dan Day.
Griffins game day continues on the road once again with Seton Hill University football. Last week it was Wheeling. This week it is Shippensburg. And we welcome you to the Coach Day Show. Dan Flickinger along with Seton Hill University fourth-year head coach Dan Day. And Coach, certainly a tough way to start the season. So much excitement, expecting some big things this year. And I know it was one game, non-conference game, but certainly not the way you wanted to start.
Oh, no question, right? I mean, you could feel the disappointment within the entire program, and rightfully so. You know, I feel like when you watch that performance, that hasn't been us for a while. I don't think we played very well top to bottom. I mean, and I know defensively came out and gave us a safety early, and then, offensively, we marched right down the field very first possession, and then an interception kind of turned that tide. But it wasn't just that series. I don't know, when you go back and as we always do, right, but go back and watch film, we were not a physical football team. And that, above all else, I think is what you've come to expect to see in Seton Hill football, week in and week out, is it's going to be a very, very physical football team, and that was not us on Thursday night, and I think that really told the story.
What was your message to the team after, again, I talked with Jalen McDuffie. I talked with Eddie Scott. Those two guys expected to win this game and really expect to have a good season. So when that doesn't happen for you in game one, what do you have to do as a coach to make sure that focus and confidence is still there?
Yeah, and I think, the biggest message to our team, especially our team leaders, has been what I've expressed, right? The concern about our roster. And I know we've gotten a lot better in terms of leadership. I know we have the best player leadership as a whole since we've gotten here. I mean, these guys have really stepped up. But the biggest challenge has been, who are we going to be in the face of adversity? And that is something you never know about a team. You always have that question, right, going into a season. But my message was exactly that. This is adversity that we're facing to a really, really high level. And I don't want to say unexpected. I know you said they expected to win, but look, you're going to walk on that field every single Saturday. Someone's going to walk off with a win. Someone's going to walk off with a loss, right? Like, that's just part of the game. But we really, had high hopes for that game, right? And expecting to be able to, as a program, come out 1-0, and we didn't. So what is that message, right, is now we're facing that adversity right out of the gate. And truthfully, I didn't say this to the team right then that night, but I really firmly believe this, and we've talked about this since. Man, I'd rather stumble out of the gates than halfway through the race. This gives us an opportunity to see what we did wrong, and I think there were some preparation things I can look at in retrospect and see how, if you don't know what the problem is, it's scary. I don't know how to fix that. I feel very, very confident I know exactly what the problem was, and we know how to fix it.
Well, you mentioned the physicality wasn't there.
Yep.
Is that something that was addressed in practice this week, and how did the guys respond to practice?
Absolutely. I think you know me well enough to know, right? And that's something I told our coaches, and even our players, honestly. I told them, I think if you look at a game like that, when it wasn't just one player, it wasn't just one position group, it wasn't even just one side of the ball. It was our whole team, and if it's the whole team, right? I mean, you can boil it down however you want to, but ultimately I am in charge of this team. And if it was our entire team that didn't perform well, then that's my preparation. Our standard was not met. And in retrospect, I think the biggest aspect to that was our physicality in camp. We really made a push, and I think we are more mature mentally than we've ever been. We're able to coach things at a really, really high level, but none of that matters in the sport of football if you're not very, very physical. And we weren't physical. So was this week physical? Yes, it was. Practice-wise and the way we played, the response has been great. I think our player leadership has been phenomenal in terms of that message of, man, we're on to the next one, and being able to turn that page, use that disappointment as some fuel that can't happen again, but this is what we have to do right, moving forward, and physicality was the number one thing.
Coach, I know it was a team loss. I don't want to single anyone out, but anytime you look at a football game, you talk about the quarterback.
No question.
And Eddie Scott really struggled through 4 interceptions against Wheeling. What do you think his biggest downfall was in that game?
Yeah, and I think you look at, we had talked, obviously, Dan, on air, but also leading up to it, privately and in a few different, interviews that I would do. And a lot of those questions revolved around that position, and rightfully so. And I know for a fact in quite a few of those, my response was, I'm really excited to see Eddie Scott. I'm also really nervous to see Eddie Scott, right? Because that was his first college start at that position where, you feel a lot of pressure, to be perfect. And not only first college start, then his actual second passing attempt as a college starter ends up being an interception on the 6-yard line. I think that rattled his confidence a little bit, and that, made him have to really battle and fight through for the remainder of that game. And I think once his confidence was rattled a little bit, it was hard to, battle back from that. And I think had a running game been stronger, which it wasn't because we weren't super physical at the offensive line position, that would have been able to be complementary and not had to put so much pressure on him to be able to have to go out and make some of those plays. And so I think that's where it ended up.
We saw Jake McCormick get a couple of snaps. Did you consider going to Jake earlier in the game, Coach?
At 4 interceptions, right, there's obviously some conversation, but that conversation was really more of how are we going to handle, how do we let him learn through this, right, or do we pull him and continue to get him ready, for next week? And ultimately, I thought it was an important learning moment, for him. And Jake came in. Eddie had a little issue with his thumb right at the end of the game, and Jake had come in and he did whatever he could in those moments, But truthfully, Dan, I mean, we feel like Eddie's our guy. I mean, and being able to see, he had a bad night, no question. He's had some days at practice that weren't great either, leading up to that moment. But if you look at his body of work from spring through fall camp, even in some of those bad days, again, man, he's had really, really strong performances. And that's what we expect. That was everybody saw his bad day. Now we got to move forward and let's see that Eddie Scott we know he can be.
Well, yeah, and a couple people, after the game were asking me about Eddie, and I said, in the spring game, and I know you're going against your own teammates,
yeah,
but if you throw a good ball, you throw a good ball. And he threw a couple of really nice passes. The one I remember to Ethan down the sideline was right on the money. Yep. So, I mean, again, if you can throw, I don't care who you're playing against. If you can throw it, you can throw it. Hopefully he can bounce back today then against Shippensburg.
Yep.
How would you evaluate the defense, Coach? First 6 wheeling drives, 3 punts, an interception, and a safety.
Yeah.
But when you needed a big stop after Jai's touchdown, Wheeling goes on a 15-play drive and basically put the game away. So how do you kind of evaluate your defense?
And I think this is one that's hard. As you look at it from, just watching the game live, I think it would be easy to just say, man, they're playing really well. Even in those stops, truthfully, we didn't play great. We were not very disciplined. Our guys, I think what we did more, last night than what we had, Thursday night than what we have to do, today against Shippensburg is we were pressing to make plays that weren't ours. So sometimes that worked, in some of those drives. Well, as that game wore on and our guys were out of gaps and not run fitting correctly, that's where those drives were able to be extended. When if we had just fit it and played our style of football, which we'd become accustomed to do, I think they played very average, and again, that's just being honest with you. I know to say that there was some early, production, no question. We're better than what we even put out there, So if we're not hitting that, I'm not being true to those guys, right? And I'm being a liar to say that I think they played well. No, they have a lot more in the tank than what they can put on the than what we put on the field Thursday night.
Well, certainly the one bright spot on defense was Jalen McDuffie.
Oh, no
he
question.
Showed why.
Yep.
He's wearing the number 1, 14 tackles, 2.5 for a loss, and he also had a very inspiring kickoff return. Well, the sack too. Yeah. The sack was big. Obviously, it led to a safety. But the kickoff return, it just goes to show what he was playing with at the end of the game.
No
that much guts to try to make something good happen.
Leadership, heart, determination, and as a senior, he put everything he had into it. I mean, you could see that snap to snap. I mean, even before the kick return, when that was short and he had an opportunity, I mean, he was cramping. He fought through that, and continued to go out on special teams. Never wanted to be pulled off the field. He wanted to impact the game every way he could. But what I was most proud of him about, right, is that loss. Although It's week 1. It's early. Like, does that tell the story? Absolutely not. It's hard in that moment to not get caught up in feeling like your world's collapsing. And he was an unbelievable leader in that moment. And that's something for him I've wanted to see, who he was going to be in that moment. It would be easy for him. Man, he put his heart on the field every play he had, every opportunity he had, right? And so that would be easy to be mad at everybody else. He was an awesome leader, and he was one of the pivotal guys of, hey guys, it's time to, it is what it is. We've got to learn from this and move forward. And I didn't even really have to talk to him about that. That was his message, and that's where he wanted to be. So I think it was an awesome leadership moment for him.
Other than the bad snap on special teams that led to a safety, you were kind of raving about the way you guys played on special teams before we started the interview.
Yeah.
Kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think when you look at that overall, and I talked about our lack of physicality, where we competed the most. I mean, Coach Castillo, our special teams coordinator, did an awesome job throughout camp of it, not just being install, but every single day there was a competition element, to special teams. So the way that he prepared those guys, I felt like our special teams really, again, outside of the one, play, and really one play was one individual performance on that play. I thought our special teams played lights out. Kickoff return, kickoff unit, had to kick off after safety and still, giving up not huge returns. There was one return that was a big one, but it was sparked by a holding that came back, and you're able to draw holdings when you're giving extra effort, right, and fighting through those blocks. And that's what our guys did. I think, Coach Castillo, credit to him, he really had our special teams were ready to play. So we've got to build on that momentum special teams-wise.
And then I'll have to continue this week with Shippensburg having a really good returner. I'll ask you about him, Coach, in just a little bit. Couple of linemen were injured in the game, Trevor Mitchell and Paul Newell. I know Paul came back in. What's their status for today?
Yeah, I mean, both of them are a little bit questionable. Even if we have them, some of it's going to even be a warm-up, decision to see where they're at, and even if we do have them, I think we're going to have to keep an eye on them, to see if they can push off. It's awesome because they're both tough. That's also sometimes means now for us as coaches, we've got to watch it because they'll try to push through anything they can, and maybe, the guy behind them at 100% is better than them at, 70, 80%. Yeah. So it's definitely something we're going to have to keep an eye on.
Coach, talk a little bit about now, you had the week of practice. You're gearing up for Shippensburg. Obviously, it's a longer road trip than Wheeling. So how do you kind of prepare for that?
Yeah, it's, having those extra days has been absolutely critical. To be able to, watch game film on Friday, Saturday for those guys.
Is that a benefit, too, of playing on a Thursday, kicking off the season on a Thursday?
I love it.
Whether you win or lose?
No question. Yeah. I love it. I think the preparation for next week, but also just that physical recovery. We were able to come in on Friday, and Friday was our review day, and then the players had Saturday, Sunday off. So those guys had just days to recover their bodies, and be able to, refresh. And then, Monday being Memorial Day, we came out and practiced. We had a pretty long day, with practice and meetings all on Monday, which led to, on Thursday, we're able to actually, we didn't have practice per se. We had to walk through and then some film, so some extra mental work. But again, it was another almost full day of recovery. You don't get in a normal week physically. So I think the preparation, what they've shown has been, really, really strong. And I think we've had a great week of practice.
Coach, we'll talk about the Shippensburg Red Raiders next, all right?
Yep.
That is Coach Dan Day. This is the Dan and Dan, or Coach Day show here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. We'll be back on Griffin's Game Day as we preview today's game and talk about Shippensburg.
Hey, Westmoreland Sports Network fans. This is local State Farm agent and proud Seton Hill alumni, Alex Hetrick. As a former high school and college athlete, I know the importance of youth sports and the funding needed to make it all happen. Reach out to my office after the game to get your free quote started, and be sure to mention your favorite team so I can make a donation to their athletic department. All you need to do is head to insurewestmoreland.com or text 724-575-7392, requesting your free quote, and we'll reach out to you with your customized policies. Thanks, and enjoy the game.
Hi, I'm Albie Alberici, and I'm a business management major at Seton Hill University. Being that I was interested in both computer science and business, I was undecided about my major at first. But Seton Hill's business management program, which offers courses in information management, combines those interests. I never expected my college career to bring me here, but I'm so grateful that it did. I'm proud to call Seton Hill University my home.
Back on Griffin's Game Day to the Coach Day Show, presented by State Farm agent Alex Hetrick in Murraysville. And, Coach, we turn our attention to Shippensburg. Really good season for the Red Raiders last year, 9-2 record. They did drop their season opener last week to West Virginia State, 29-6, but the game was only 10-6 until the fourth quarter, and the Yellow Jackets were able to really run away with it. So just, first of all, your overall thoughts on Shippensburg.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played Shippensburg yet, coming back to Seton Hill. We didn't play him as a player, and so I never had that opportunity. But ever since 2019, although we haven't played them, we've had Shippensburg crossover film every year. We'd see them playing one of our opponents we were preparing for. And the reason I bring it up is because for us as a staff, I can remember all the way back to 2019 saying, man, out of all the PSAC teams that we've ever seen on film, Shippensburg is arguably the most disciplined, fundamental team that I've ever seen on film. I mean, every single year that has held true. And what Coach Mack does with that program, I mean, you know what you are going to get. A team that will not beat themselves. They're going to play very, very disciplined, physical football, something we've truthfully talked about, here and how we've wanted to build, Seton Hill's football program from the beginning. I've always, been able to see that in his programs and extremely disciplined, very well fundamental. I mean, so you're not going to be able to beat yourself in a game like this. I mean, that's going to be the bottom line.
When you look at their game last week, they used two quarterbacks in the contest, Sam Johnson, Joey McCracken. Who do you kind of plan on seeing today?
Yeah, we've honestly had to go into it expecting to see a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I don't know that given the game situation when Joey came in, and it was still a tight game, but I don't know, given the performance one way or the other, I don't know that if you came in with Sam to start, I don't know that he did enough necessarily to lose it. I don't know, to see where we're at. So we've kind of prepared for both of them as much as we possibly could to see.
Has anything changed defensively in terms of their styles?
Well, that's what I was going to say next is I don't know that they are significantly different in terms of, how they like to play. It's not like you're facing one that's a really, really talented runner, so expecting for quarterback run game, and then the next guy is, lights out with his arm. I think they're pretty similar skill set wise, so it didn't necessarily force some of the formational checks. We do have to, see, who that guy is in terms of what they do a little bit better, based on formations for what the quarterback does a little bit better.
And then defensively, who do you kind of have to watch out for? Who stands out on that side of the ball?
Yeah, I think their defensive front is really, really strong. Number 88 is one of the best interior defensive linemen I feel like we've seen. I think he's up there with anybody we've played against since we've been here. 93 is another defensive end. And one of the guys that I think is maybe a little bit of an unsung hero for them because he doesn't play every single play. But I'll tell you what, number 14, when he's in the game, we got to know where he is, Nasir Green. He's very, very electric. You could tell that when he's in, they build some things around him. So he's definitely a defensive back that we've got to make sure we have our eyes on.
Now, I mentioned earlier about the special teams, and they had a special teams player of the week, Red Douglas. He returned a kickoff 89 yards for a touchdown. What do you have to do to prepare against him? I know you're feeling good about your special teams coming in, but what do you have to do to prepare?
He's an electric player.
Do you kick away from a guy like that as much as possible if you can?
I mean, you have to be conscious of it. There's no question about it, in the way that he controlled that game, and he put the touchdown on the board early, for Shippensburg, and he had a few more, that were really, really just big returns, and the way that he impacted special teams was it was incredible, to see one. That's obviously why he was PSAC Player of the Week for that. But I think more than anything, it's a challenge, to our guys to be able to be disciplined in our lanes. That's what he did great, was understanding the crease he was trying to hit, and he broke some tackles, and so that shows he's got a lot of heart, but he also has that ability, to play through those things. So I think it's that much more of a challenge to our guys of you're going to be in that position to make plays. They were as well. He outplayed them in that moment. Will we let him do the same to us in terms of stepping up and making that play? So it's definitely something in your mind. Are we good? But I would say, and I hope it doesn't come off as arrogant, but I trust our guys to go out and make that play in that moment. So our challenge is more to our players to, not allow him to affect that game that way.
Coach, finally, your keys to victory today against Shippensburg.
Well, this may surprise you. Number one on defense this week was not run the football.
Right.
Because our number one on all three phases of the game was to play physical Seton Hill football. That was not what we did last Thursday, and that has to be the key to our victory. Offense, defense, special teams. We've got to get back to our style of football, playing just a physically punishing game on offense, defense, every phase of what we want to do. So being physical is the number one. Defensively, so number two becomes stop the run, right? Yeah. Which we didn't do very well last week. I think it was 266 yards on the ground, right? Which is not typical for our defense. So got to get back, to that style of football. For us offensively, 0 turnovers. We threw 4 interceptions last week, so it's got to be 0 turnovers. We took care of the ball on the ground. We had no fumbles, which is really important. That's got to continue to carry over. But 0 turnovers is going to be critical, for us. And then special teams wise, we want to make sure, as you brought up with Red, we've got to make sure we're doing a good job of not allowing him to have any big impactful plays, on special teams, and making sure, I'd like to see a full week special teams wise of getting out with 0 penalties.
So, for those that didn't know, Coach Day is a Buffalo Bills fan. He's not a Steelers fan. I'm sure he still can.
Huge Bills fan.
You still probably catch a couple Steeler games here and there since you're living in the Pittsburgh area.
I'm a huge Bills fan. We're going to have to leave that one.
All right, whatever.
Yeah.
So, I think they play again this year, don't they? Steelers and Bills at Buffalo again? Yep. How did you wrangle that?
I don't know.
Oh, man. So, I need a prediction on the Bills' record then this year. I want to ask you about the Steelers since you don't watch them.
Yeah.
What do you think? Now, remember, there's 17 games this year, not 16.
Yeah, and I know we're not gambling, right?
No, we're not allowed to do that.
The rule of gambling, if you were to pick a game, is you don't ever pick with your heart.
Right, pick with your mind.
Being a Bills fan, I would say that Josh has started slow the last few years. He's taken a couple games to get.
Yeah, the Steelers beat them in the first game.
Last year. No, I remember that. And then the Dolphins were early, I think week 3. But he started slow. I don't know that he'll start slow. I think that's kind of been the MO. But I would say, and I know Buffalo's favored, I think it's hard to go against the Super Bowl champs in week 1 with all the energy and excitement they have. I would say the Rams by 7.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair and honest. Well, what about a end of the season record though for the Bills?
I think you'll see them pretty deep.
All right. He's taking the diplomatic way out of it. Coach, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
As always, good luck today against Shippensburg.
Thank you.
That is the Coach Dan Day Show here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Sean and Roger will be back with you from Shippensburg in just a moment as we count you down to kickoff between the Griffins and Red Raiders.